Mo, it's hard to believe. It's June, number one, already.
I know, right?
Summer has started.
It's here.
And I'm super excited about this show, what we're going to be doing this summer. And you know what? I think probably I'm super excited about what I've already learned and what I've recognized that we're doing wrong, which we're going to talk about. But man, it's been kind of a swift punch to the face.
Yeah, parenting is hard in general, right? And then when you start adding these measures, these counterparts that are impacting and influencing your kids outside of your house, and in some aspects, theoretically, inside your house because of the use of technology, it's just hard. It's just hard. And so this book, you're right. I mean, this book came at the right time, especially for us because now our last child is turning. Well, she just turned 14.
Yeah,
and
right.
Really in this influential part of her life where peer pressure, going into high school, and all of that, and everything that entails into that transition. And now you add on and tack on the impact of social media, technology, the internet, and everything of that sort. So yeah, this book came right on time.
It's going to be an absolute fun read, and it's going to be super engaging. We're going to work through this book, The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. Did I say that correctly?
I hope you did.
Yeah. So The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. We're going to work through this book literally over 8 weeks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And there's 4 parts to the book. We're really going to get into part 1 next week, and then from there kind of go over the rest of what we're going to cover. We ought to make sure that we provide some type of access where people can see kind of the schedule that we're going to go through between now and the end of July. I challenge, for all of our viewers and listeners to our podcast, get the book, The Anxious Generation. We'll drop a Amazon link available for you to be able to click and order the book. It's come highly recommended to us from our church. And I say that not to say that the author has all the right responses. Okay, I think actually the author might be agnostic, atheist, not sure. But nonetheless, we're going to work through it with kind of like a neutral mindset, me and you, open discussion. I think full disclosure, you or I are not, by any means professionals when it comes to, child education, child psychology, child counseling, and just, we're not educated in that field.
No, not at all.
But we do have kids.
We do have kids. So we do know how to
recognize our shortfalls
and things that we can improve on.
Yeah.
And like every generation, right? I mean, you have to, in some aspects, be able to relate to the generation that you're raising.
Yeah.
Just like our parents had to relate to us, we're doing it to our kids. But I think there's just so much more influence, outside influence, that our parents probably didn't have to go through.
Right. No, they didn't.
They didn't
have to go through. I think it's funny too, because I remember as a young man, especially getting my first job at the fire department, which, before that was at Chemical Products, which by the way is closing down. That's crazy. But then the fire department, and the fire department was kind of a rough world, because you're around a lot of old school guys, man. I mean, old school, and they're rough. Mm-hmm. No sensitivity training happened in their career path. You know what I mean? So they naturally are going to pick on the younger guy. And I just remember thinking, you hear that statement often that is, what's wrong with these millennials, or what's wrong with this next generation? God, they just don't get it. And constantly in my mind, I'm thinking, well, you dummy, you're the one that raised us. Like, if you don't like the product, maybe you should have changed the racing style. But anyway, I think to your point and to mine, our goal is to, I don't know. I feel like maybe we, in some aspects, have been somewhat ignorant. We know that there are things that we don't know about the impact of technology, the impact of social media platforms, and the impact of all of the data available to our kids. We know it's an issue. I think everybody knows this is too much. But I don't know if even I myself have taken the time to really try to dive in and fully wrap my mind around what am I exposing my kids to. I think at least me and some of my friends, you probably have heard this. They make the statement like, well, I check my kids' phones.
Yeah.
I'm making sure that they're not subscribed to TikTok or, maybe even Instagram or Snapchat or something like that. But I'm like, they may not have an account at TikTok, but you can watch TikTok reels on YouTube.
Right.
And yeah, you might be checking their phone occasionally, but when they're investing 2-3 hours a day, you're not covering all the things they're looking at, reviewing their phone.
And it's not just the content. It's the fact that they're on it. Right. So it's just the usage of it as well. So yes, you may be monitoring what your child is looking at in some aspects, or even if you're doing the best job, you have all the filters, you have all the apps, you have all the blockers where they can't watch anything that's inappropriate.
You think,
but let's say you did, but if they're still spending 3, 4, 5 hours scrolling through quote unquote appropriate content, there's still some type of, I would say, social impact on just being reliant on viewing on a device that still has impact on the children's development.
100%.
So it's the balance of the content as well as the usage, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, that's spot on. So our goal is to not be, 60 years old, 65 years old, and look back and say, what's wrong with you? Our goal is to be like, okay, what's wrong with the way that we're raising? Let's put our boots on here, being a parent, a father, a mother, being a grandparent, being a guardian is accepting a level of responsibility. That responsibility goes much deeper than putting a screen in front of your phone, in front of your child at dinner to keep them quiet.
Right.
Okay? The end goal is not a quiet dinner. The end goal is that you raise a successful, mindful child. Okay, so this is kind of a step in that direction. A lot we're going to cover.
Yeah.
I'm super excited about it. And once again, Mo and I will say it 100 times. We are not the experts. We are just two guys working through the same challenges that everybody else is facing in today's world. Definite personal challenges. So with that said, you ready to kind of jump in just to the introduction for today?
Yeah, so the book starts off with this parable of, a child growing up or asking permission to go to Mars, asking the parents for permission to go to Mars. And, parents are asking themselves, asking the child, is this mission that you're going on to, is it safe? Has it been tested? Why are they quote unquote, they who are, putting this test together, why are they targeting children? Why aren't they targeting adults? And at the end of the day, the parent says, I don't know. I'm not sure about this. But, he develops that into in an area where that's kind of where kids have gone to, in the sense where they've been given access or given the permission to enter this new world that hasn't really been tested, that really hasn't been given much in his thoughts, much thought into the impact that it can have on children going into this new virtual world, this new connected world outside of what we've all known and all been prescribed
and been used to.
Yeah.
I love the way that he kind of lays out this parable, because you're right. It challenges you to think, okay, well, if my child came home today and was like, I'm going to take my youngest. No, I'll use Ben because he's of the age. He's almost 13. So let's say Ben comes home today and he's like you said, totally motivated, doesn't really ask for permission, instead says, Dad, I'm ready. I have accepted the position with this conversation at school. This company came by and basically gave the speech about how kids get to be a part of this test to live in Mars. And, as a parent, you're thinking, come on, hold up. A lot of questions. Excuse me. A lot of questions here. One of them is, can I go with you?
This sounds pretty cool.
This sounds pretty cool. Okay, so can I go with you? How are we going to get there? What's it going to cost? And when they start answering the questions, well, I don't know, I'm not sure. Well, I said, well, is it safe? Well, they really don't know yet. They're testing this. What they said, they're using kids because kids have softer minds that are in a developing stage, which means they feel like they can adapt quicker to the elements at Mars, the society, the community, etc. So, Dad, they won't allow adults come, but us, because we're more adaptable. And I'm like, okay, well, do they know it's safe? Well, no, not
Not
yet.
yet.
And I'm like, well, you said you're going, so are you asking, or are you? No. They basically said, look, all you have to do is just, hit the button that says, I consent. And by consenting, Dad, it's also like a contract. Like, I'm committed to allowing them to have access to me when I do that. So I just went ahead and hit it.
And I'm going.
I would. I mean, think about it, as a father, you'd be like, first off, you're an idiot.
Right.
No, you're not going. Second off, let me get my hands around the guy who's at the school, and then I want to get my hands around the school
For letting him in.
which is going to be like week 9 of this show. Okay. But nonetheless, let me get my hands. Yeah. But when you think about it, obviously it's just a parable, but he's kind of tying this into this idea that your children have hit consent, and you as a parent, and I'm going to say knowingly, because we know.
We know. Nowadays,
We know our kids when they have access to too much. Okay. And if you don't know, then shame on you. That's like a whole different level of ignorance, I feel. Okay. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but I do. Like, we know. Like, I know if I hand a cell phone to my child that is unrestricted, or a cell phone to my kid that, okay, I've just simply went on the Google app and put restrict particular websites or some type of level of security. At the end of the day, I know that my 13 and 16-year-old son probably know that device better than I do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's not be too ignorant here. So he ties that together. When we give them that, we're giving them access to a world, and not giving just them access. We're giving, probably even more of a concern, access to these companies to our kids'
to target them.
minds.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you take it back to, the rise of smartphones, or the rise of the internet connectivity, there was what was it, COPA, the Child Online Privacy Protection Act, which was in 1998, I believe. And so that gave children of the age of 13 the ability to click yes, like you mentioned, I accept the terms and conditions, the terms and services, to literally give these companies the permission to keep their data, to have their data. And so what's interesting to me is, 98, I was 17 years old, not really, nowhere in my mind was I thinking about, child protection when it comes to online access. But I'm interested in why 13 was an age of consent. When you think about age of consent in so many different areas of our lives, smoking, buying cigarettes, alcohol, voting, joining the military, even driving, you have to be at least, here in Georgia, 16 years old to at least drive on your own.
Going to bars.
I mean,
much less, let's just be honest, walking into an adult, whatever, strip joint or something like that.
Yeah, you've got to.
Let's be the truth is they're not going to let you in. They're not going to let your 13-year-old kid in there.
No.
Right? But you can do it online.
Yeah, you can do it online. And so, why 13? I'm interested on why 13, but that's such a young age to give access to give permission for your data. And so now you're going to, it's 1998. Smartphones weren't even a thing then. Right?
Data in 1998 was like the phone numbers that you tracked in your beeper.
Right.
Like, what? How has it not been updated since 1998?
Yeah.
Like, how has our government, talking about, well, I don't want to get on a tangent. They tax us to raise income and revenue to really, we hope, put together policy that's important and vital to our society. And yet, in this situation, we have policies that are dated back to 1998. Like, I was joking about the beeper, but no, seriously. What were they regulating? Yahoo Chat?
Yeah.
you know,
Instant Messenger.
instant messenger, and you know, we didn't even have emojis. We didn't even have. I mean, there was nothing to, you know. How have they not developed the compliance and the regulatory measures?
But they must have known. Someone must have known, in my opinion, that this could lead to an issue. Because why have this act in the first place?
Right.
Right? You know, like what, like you mentioned, the data back then. Like what are they trying to kind of gain back in 1998? If it was just phone numbers and location, well, location's probably there. Was probably there.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, you know. And so I guess that's why, you know, nowadays with this fight with TikTok, as far as, you know, are the Chinese stealing data and everything of that sort, I mean, you could probably see that some of these conversations are happening now. But yeah, I'm interested in why 13, and as the book moves into this age of the transition or the evolution of your flip phones, your beepers, your internet back then, which was, you know, if you were lucky enough to have a computer at home, you had access to the internet, but it was probably a stationary family computer. Access to where you can go online was limited because it was a family computer, right? So you couldn't really be sneaking around going to different sites. Then all of a sudden, it transitions to this connection between smartphones. Well, now you have access to the internet 24/7.
Right.
And I think this first smartphone was like in 2007. So you can see from 98 to 2000, that's a very short time frame.
Yeah.
Where all of a sudden the connectivity to the internet being 24/7 is huge.
Yeah, I think in next week when we break down basically, you know, chapter 1, there's a lot of like statistical data that begins to support this concept that, hey, there's a problem. There's a real issue here. Rise of anxiety, rise of depression, rise of, unfortunately, suicide, self-harm. There's a lot of information that we're going to cover next week. But you're right. You know, in the development and the continued increase in development of technology, AI especially coming down the pipeline, this is something that parents and guardians and grandparents have got to strap up their boots and get knowledgeable on the subject of what is okay and what is not okay. You know, sometimes I think as parents, you know, and Jonathan Haidt mentions this in the introduction, you know, as parents, we look at social media, and social media can definitely be a helpful platform. It's a way of, you know, connecting people. It's a way of business opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, this show itself is being
absolutely,
you know, put on podcasts, put on Instagram, YouTube. So social media can be a very, if you like any tool, right? If used in the right way, can be a very
but it is
impactful.
a tool.
It is a tool. You're right.
Yeah. And I think as parents, sometimes we tend to use the devices and don't see much harm with it. But what we forget is that our kids, especially children that are going through puberty, children that are developing, their minds are still in that developmental phase. I believe he talks about kind of the difference as an adult to a child. You know, a child that's going through development, their frontal cortex, which is really the part of the brain that governs, you know, self-control,
instant gratification.
Instant gratification, you know, all the things that are necessary really to navigate life with, to manage relationships, to manage challenging situations, to control your own physical body and mind and thought, et cetera, to be able to work through, you know, different situations. The development of that really starts and doesn't fully complete until, you know, early to mid-20s. You know, so kids having access to some of this content and data, and, you know, at this point, it's not even 13. I think they said 40%. Was it 40% of kids under the age of 13 have Instagram accounts?
Yes. Yeah, I believe so.
Like, what are we talking about? You know, these kids are completely not equipped to be able to manage the incoming content. Listen, most parents
Aren't able to do it.
aren't even equipped to be able to say, oh, I don't need to look at that, or oh, I need to put my phone down. I haven't had dinner with my wife or spoke to my wife in the last hour I've sat next to her in the bed. I need to put it down. Like even adults. So why would we throw our children into really a boxing ring at the age of
Great analogy.
8, 9, 10, 11, or 12 to fight up against, something that has been trained, equipped, and invested in to the tune of billions of dollars.
Probably even trillions.
Probably trillions.
Yeah. And I think some parents feel like they are under pressure, to have their kids be accepted, have their kids, be the peer pressure that parents have to make sure that their kids are still up to date with what's going on in society, and they use social media as I don't want to let my kids down. I don't want my kids to feel left out in this arena where all their friends are. I don't want them to be shunned out. So let me give them access to this world, and I think some of them, and I'll be honest. I think some of them just don't really understand the real impact it has. Because again, it goes with the idea of, well, if I can guard what they're watching or what they're seeing, that's the best part of raising them within the social media world, but not really thinking about the mental side of it.
Yeah.
Right. This real world versus the virtual world is, he breaks it down of the differences between the two. The real world is embodied, it's synchronous, it's one-to-one, it has a high bar of entry. Meaning that,
Yeah, we got to break that. We got to talk
the
about
real
that.
world is embodied, one-on communication with bodies, one-on-one, you and I talking right now, or you and I and a group of friends just hanging out, talking to each other, and a high barrier of entry, meaning that we're talking to each other, right? We're not just texting each other or commenting on posts or whatever it is. Like there's real genuine communication going on. And where this virtual world, it's not embodied. We're sending texts, we're putting pictures up there. For boys, it's video games, right? It's not synchronous, meaning that when I'm having a conversation with you one-on-one, I'm in the moment.
Right.
But if I'm in the virtual world, I can be texting, I can look on YouTube, I can look on social media, I can do so many different things at the same time and not really be present at the moment. And
you got to help me out here. What page is the discussion that you're having? Because here it is. I got you.
And the high barrier of entry and exit is huge. And the exit part is, like, you know what? If I don't like the comments, I block you, or I cancel you, or just leave the chat room, whatever it is, where it's not actually trying to resolve any type of conflict.
Yeah, I'm gonna rephrase some of what you just said, because I feel like you went through it, and there's a lot of meat there that I don't want to miss. That I don't want to everybody else miss also. So he basically says that the central claim of this book is focused on two different trends: overprotection in the real world and underprotection in the virtual world. Okay, we overprotect our kids in this real world scenario, which is, it is funny because we almost rob them from the childhood that we had, which I understand. I have kids, and I probably am a bit, I don't know, I may be a bit underprotected, protective in certain areas, according to my friends. But, like I remember as a kid being able to take my bike and ride miles, to the park, cross, highways. And I say highways as in like, Highway 41. Parents will say, well, that's different now. There's more cars on the road. I'm like, yeah, but there's still cars.
It's still a highway.
It's still a highway, and there's still cars, right? But, cross major highways to meet friends at the ballpark with no cell phone, with no adult, as long as you're home by dinner time. And if you weren't home by dinner time, then we start to worry.
Yeah.
Okay. But until then, you're not thinking about it.
I was,
and that's at 8, 9. Oh, I know you have some.
Yeah, no, growing up in Brooklyn, in New York City, when I was middle school, so what was I, 5th grade, so 10, 11, I'd take the subway from my house in Brooklyn to my school back and fro back and forth. Gosh, man. Like no cell phone, by myself, hanging out with friends, and
Hopping on the subway.
hopping on the subway, multiple trains. Like it's not just one train. I'm taking multiple
Yeah.
trains, and
You know,
that
most
was
adults from Georgia can't manage the subway. You know that, right?
but yeah, you're right. I mean, it was just what we did.
Mhm.
You know, it's just what we did, and I'm sure there were
And we
there were fears
discount
there, but
we discount the experience and the foundation that's built in us as people, as kids, going through those. You know, that was just life. So we it's just the way life was.
just life was. Yeah, you're
You
right.
know, and so we don't really put much value probably there as much as we should to the freedom that we had as kids to be able to do some of the things that now we don't allow our kids to do. You know, you need to stay in the yard. You don't need to run across the street. If you do, you need to wait for me to come take you at the age of 12. You know, something silly, and so yeah, there's this world where we overprotect our kids. You know, and everybody's got their different opinion on that, right? So I don't want to overstep any boundaries, you know, but definitely we all have a different thought. But yes, I think in general we overprotect in the real world, and then we hand them a phone in the virtual world with zero protection. Oh well, I look at their phone. I'm like, okay, you tell your kid not to, you know, buy or to walk into an area where they could see someone or be exposed to someone at a bar or in a strip joint, but you'll give them a phone where they have access to look at anything they want to and not say a word. You know? Like, what are we talking about?
Yeah.
So what he says here is, in the real world, to your point, he uses the word embodied.
Mm-hmm.
He uses the word synchronous. I hope I said that right.
Yeah.
He uses the word one, or the scenario one-on-one communication, or one to a few, and a high bar for entry. And so you broke this down already, but that is what you and I grew up with, you know, not long ago.
Not long ago at all.
You know, to be a part of a group required more than a subscription or a request. And, you know, to leave the group wasn't just a matter of, you know, remove.
Right. It wasn't delete. It wasn't I'm blocking you. You know, there was some action that needed to be taken to,
Right.
and there was some thought process behind it. Right. I mean, like we're guys, right? I mean, we grew up where we're cutting with each other. We're poking fun of each other. We're busting each other's chops. You know, like that's what
Yeah.
boys did, right? And if you were angry because someone cut too deep, you confronted that person. You know, it didn't have to turn to physical, but it could be another.
But maybe it did.
But maybe it did.
Yeah.
But if it did, the next day, what's up, man?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe 2 days later, what's up, man?
Real
And
life,
that's it. Real life
life
scenarios.
experience on how to navigate relationships.
Yeah.
Conflict.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the virtual world, that low barrier of exit ruins that type of real world experience that these kids are going through.
You're 100% correct. There's no commitment at all to or there's a serious lack of commitment to relationships in general, you know, because at the first moment of, you know, challenge and conflict, it's easier for me to step away because that's what I've always had to do. That's what I've always had the option to do, is to simply exit by the click of a button. So now when I'm challenged with that in real life, well, I'm going to go find another job because I really just don't like my boss.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what are you talking about? No, you adapt, you work through it because that's your superior. I'm gonna exit this relationship with my wife after a few years because, you know, just not working. No. You know, that's what you've always done and that's what you've been exposed to. But in the real world, you need to learn how to, you know, embody the relationship, how to navigate the challenges, how to work through the difficulties. So I love his example of, you know, working through the difference between real world and virtual world.
Right.
You know,
It's the what do you call it? The play outside childhood versus the play based childhood versus the phone based childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I love the phrase, the rewiring, the great rewiring of childhood, because that's what it's doing. It's rewiring what childhood looks like and the experiences that children go through.
Mm-hmm.
And so the impact it has on Generation Z, Gen Z, is because, I think he describes Gen Z as anyone born between 95 and mid 2010s.
Mm-hmm.
Because during that age during those years is when this connectivity between the rise of internet, the rise of social media, the introduction of smartphones, all of that happened in that period.
Mm-hmm.
And you're seeing the impact of those kids now. I mean, they are the first generation to go through puberty in this
That's alarming.
technology world.
It's alarming, and it's only going to become more difficult. It really is. There's a documentary. I don't know if you've watched it. It is The Social Dilemma.
Yes.
Have you seen that?
Yes.
Definitely for you guys, for any of you guys that are looking to get a bit more educated on just the challenges and really the behind the scenes of what some of these social platforms can do from an algorithm standpoint. It's kind of, it doesn't cover it all, but that's a great documentary to sit down and watch. It's a bit alarming because the reality is as advanced as technology already is and the continued development of AI technology, we, even as adults, but for sure children, they're just not equipped.
No.
And we just can't continue to throw our kids into an arena against a computer system and an algorithm that's so highly developed that will know ahead of time, what your kid will like or not like, what they'll slow the scroll down on and what they won't. They can influence the direction of their thought pattern, not necessarily forcing them, but definitely influencing them to believe in a certain way that might be completely contrary to your belief. And so, I would say that we as parents need to be mindful that we are not allowing our children to be discipled by their phones. We need to be mindful about the interest of social platforms. These are companies for profit. These are companies and executive boards that are focused predominantly on market cap, on shareholder interests,
On profits.
and on net worth.
That's it.
That's their interest, not the well-being of your child, the well-being of their mental state at all. That's a cost to business. They're pushing forward with a total different interest in mind. So I think we need to be mindful.
Yeah. It starts at home, and it starts with us.
Starts with us.
We need to be mindful as well as because kids are looking.
Yeah.
Right. So are you, if you are convicted this way with what your kids are looking at, are you convicted with what you're looking at? Are you convicted with the amount of time that you're putting into social media? One thing that I like is I hated it at first, but now I like it. I get the alert. I think it's Sundays, whatever it is, but my screen time activity.
Yeah. Right.
And it was alarming when I was like, wow, I've been on now I use my phone for work. I use my phone for, different things, but it was like, wow, I am on my phone a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it made me realize that I need to, take a step back and really, ask myself, okay, what was I actually looking at as far as was I just rolling through YouTube and just finding something just to escape for a little while? Or was I actually watching, like I was watching yesterday, some golf lessons online? Like, was it productive? At the end of the day, was I doing something productive with my time, or was I just aimlessly?
Let me help you out.
Yeah.
Golf lessons on YouTube is completely unproductive because those guys hit it so much better always. And you can watch all the video content you want. You go out there on the course, it's like, what happened? I do it the same way. I'm hitting it the same way. It's
I know.
Anyway.
But I was thinking back to what our pastor said the other day during this Think series that we're going through at church. An idle mind is a devil's playground.
Oh man, so true.
Right. So
So true.
as again, going back to not just the content that they're looking at, but also the amount of time that they're on, and they're just mindlessly scrolling.
You know, we
mindlessly
we
looking.
should definitely put our own, you know, whether they're good tips or not, you know, whether they work or not. But we should definitely throw out some ideas as we go through it, changes that you're making and changes that, you know, we're making within our house. I told you we've already, you know, taken a step in a direction of, you know, getting things in order. Just as a result of like finally like thinking through this. And I have a child that's about to be 16 years old, and you know, I kick myself for thinking like, you know, what are you doing? You drug your feet. You didn't take the time to invest into really what your children had access to. But nonetheless, you know, just getting into it. It's never too late, right?
Right.
So start. There's got to be a place to start, and so we can share some of those ideas that we're gonna implement. So you want to wrap it up with this quote?
Yeah.
That was a good quote. And I should say the gentleman's last name. Do you want to give it a shot? I mean, his name is, oh my gosh.
Epictetus? Epictetus. He's
If anybody will, yeah.
I believe he's
Epictetus.
Epictetus. I think he was a
anyway.
Greek philosopher
Yes.
or some type of philosopher.
And he has a name that supports that. But if your body was turned over to just anyone, you would doubtless take exception. Why aren't you ashamed that you have made your mind vulnerable to anyone who happens to criticize you, so that it automatically becomes confused and upset?
I love that.
What does it feel like? And I think it's a good question to ask. What does it feel like to be controlled by something external, something that literally does not have your best interest in mind? And that goes for adults, it goes for you, it goes for me, it goes for everybody. And it's not just cell phones, it's not just social media platforms. Are you being influenced and controlled by something 100%, you know, exterior without your best interest?
Yeah.
You know.
The thing about are you okay that if you click that consent form, that terms of service, and you click yes, are you okay with what that yes actually means? That you are giving up control of your influences. You're giving up control of your data. You're giving up control of your decision making. Are you okay with that click?
And I think we should end with this. If you're okay with it, what we have to remember is we are independent adults raising the next generation. And the reality is what social media platforms create in regards to the algorithms, the platform itself, and the future development of the technology over time. The reality is they never said it was their responsibility to raise our children. So we can blame what our kids have access to. We can blame the government. We can blame social media. We can blame a lot. We can blame school teachers. We can blame our community, counselors. At the end of the day, it's our responsibility to raise our kids. And so we have to definitely be the one to take the first step to become educated, to implement the discipline in and of ourselves, and then also to teach and train our kids to do the same thing.
I love it.
All right.
Next,
it's going to be a fun and challenging summer. I'm so excited about it.
Yeah, me too. So for everyone, again, the book is called The Anxious Generation, How the Great Rewiring of Childhood is Causing an Epidemic of Mental Illness by Jonathan Haidt. So again, the link to the book will be on below. And pick it up. Join us on this journey for the next few weeks. And we'll see you next week.
Yeah, and then also put it out there. You know, share the book, share the podcast, and let's just work through it together and definitely communicate with us and your thoughts and things that we've talked about and said, and challenge us as well. But look forward to it. All right, on to next week.